Most men lose power in their relationships without ever realizing it happened. There's no argument, no betrayal, no moment where everything breaks. It happens quietly. One day you're respected, the next you're tolerated, and by the time you feel it, the damage is already done. You tell yourself you're being patient, understanding, mature, but patience without boundaries is not strength. It is surrender, disguised as virtue. Marcus Aurelius warned that a man is harmed not by events, but by the judgments he allows to rule him. Most men never revoke those judgments. They adjust instead. They tolerate more. They explain themselves longer. And slowly, they give away the very power they're trying to protect. This video is not about tricks, tactics, or chasing attraction. It's about the invisible moments where self-respect is either reinforced or quietly abandoned. If you stay, you'll understand why power in relationships is never taken from you. It is always surrendered. And how to stop doing it without becoming cold, bitter, or performative. This is not a short lesson. It's a long reckoning. And it begins now, right here, with the Stoic Code. Chapter 1. The quiet moment, power is lost. There is a moment where power is lost that almost no man notices when it happens. It doesn't come during an argument. It doesn't come when someone disrespects you openly. It doesn't even come when you feel angry. It comes when you feel uncertain and choose comfort over clarity. Picture this. You send a message, hours pass, then a full day. When the reply finally comes, it's casual, unapologetic, as if your time existed on standby. You feel a brief tightening in your chest, a quiet signal that something is off. But instead of honoring that signal, you override it. You tell yourself they're busy. You respond quickly, warmly, as if nothing happened. That moment feels harmless. It feels mature. But something irreversible just occurred. Power shifted. Not because they ignored you, but because you taught them that ignoring you carries no cost. This is how it happens in today's world. Not through cruelty, but through convenience. Not through dominance, but through delay. Modern disrespect wears soft clothing. It hides behind late replies, half attention, vague plans, and "I'll let you know." And because none of it looks aggressive, most men never confront it. They adapt instead. At work, it looks like your idea being talked over in a meeting. You notice it. You feel the heat rise. Then you tell yourself it's not worth making things awkward. Someone else repeats your idea louder and gets credit. You say nothing. You smile. You tell yourself you're being professional. But professionalism without self-respect teaches people exactly how far they can go. In friendships, it looks like being the reliable one, the one who always shows up, the one who adjusts schedules, cancels plans, makes room. At first, this earns appreciation. Over time, it earns expectation. And eventually, it earns dismissal. Because when access is unlimited, value disappears. In dating, it looks like emotional over-explanation. You clarify your intentions early. You explain your feelings. You justify your reactions. You do this not because it's earned, but because you're afraid silence will cost you connection. You mistake transparency for intimacy. But intimacy without time has no gravity. It collapses under its own weight. The quiet moment power is lost is always the same. It is the moment you feel internal resistance and choose to override it to preserve ease. The Stoics warned about this exact pattern. They understood that a man is not undone by force, but by self-betrayal repeated often enough to feel normal. Every time you ignore your own discomfort to keep peace, you teach yourself, and everyone else, that your boundaries are flexible under pressure. And flexible boundaries invite testing. This is why power never disappears all at once. It leaks, slowly, politely, in ways that feel reasonable at the time. You don't notice the loss until one day you're no longer consulted, no longer prioritized, no longer taken seriously, and you can't explain why. Here is the shift most men never make. Power is not maintained by asserting dominance. It is maintained by withholding participation when alignment disappears. Overcoming this does not require confrontation. It requires restraint. It means not replying immediately when your time has been treated casually. It means letting silence do the work instead of filling it with reassurance. It means allowing absence to create contrast instead of chasing clarity. This feels risky at first, because modern culture teaches men that availability equals value, that responsiveness equals maturity, that endurance equals virtue. But the Stoics rejected this entirely. They believed dignity is not proven by how much you tolerate, but by what you refuse to reward. The first step is noticing the moment it happens. That brief internal signal, that quiet hesitation, that instant where you feel something is off. Power is preserved the moment you stop overriding yourself. And in the next section, this becomes uncomfortable, because once you stop surrendering power quietly, you'll discover something else the Stoics understood clearly. Most people are not reacting to your words at all. They are reacting to your availability. That changes everything. Chapter 2. Availability is not kindness. It is a signal. Most men believe their problem is communication. They think if they just explain themselves better, respond faster, show more effort, things will stabilize. That belief quietly ruins their leverage. Because in the modern world, availability speaks louder than words. Think about how often you're reachable. Your phone is always on. Your responses are immediate. Your time is open-ended. When someone messages you, you feel a subtle obligation to answer quickly, not because you want to, but because you don't want to seem rude, uninterested, or replaceable. But here's the paradox most men never confront. The more available you are, the less you are valued. Not because people are malicious, but because the human mind assigns value based on scarcity and consequence. When access to you costs nothing, attention to you costs nothing too. This shows up everywhere today. In dating, it looks like replying instantly even when responses come hours later. It looks like rearranging your schedule to accommodate someone who hasn't demonstrated consistency. It looks like emotional presence being offered before trust has been earned. At first, this feels generous. Over time, it feels expected. And eventually, it feels invisible. In friendships, it looks like always being the one who initiates, always the one who adjusts, always the one who understands. You become dependable, and then forgettable. Because reliability without boundaries becomes utility. At work, it looks like saying yes by default, taking on extra tasks, staying late without acknowledgement, being easy to work with. But ease without limits trains people to assume your time is expandable. And once that assumption sets in, respect quietly erodes. The Stoics saw this clearly. They understood that attention is currency. Where you spend it repeatedly without discrimination, you signal that it has little cost. And what has little cost is treated carelessly. This is where men confuse kindness with submission. Kindness is intentional. Submission is automatic. When you respond reflexively instead of deliberately, you are not choosing generosity. You are avoiding discomfort. The discomfort of silence. The discomfort of uncertainty. The discomfort of not being immediately affirmed. Availability becomes a coping mechanism, but power returns the moment availability becomes a choice again. This doesn't mean becoming distant or cold. It means becoming selective. It means responding when you're aligned, not when you're anxious. It means letting space exist long enough for contrast to form. Silence, when used intentionally, reveals truth. People who value you adjust. People who relied on your accessibility drift. Both outcomes are information, and this is the turning point most men fear. Because once you stop being endlessly available, you are forced to confront something deeper. Who is still present when you are no longer convenient? That realization is uncomfortable, which leads directly to the next chapter. Because when availability is reduced, another instinct surfaces almost immediately. The urge to explain yourself. And that urge is where many men lose power all over again. Chapter 3. The trap of over-explaining and emotional exposure. There is a moment after you pull back where anxiety spikes. You've delayed a response. You didn't clarify your intentions. You didn't smooth the tension. And suddenly your mind starts racing. You feel the urge to explain, to justify, to reassure, to make sure you're not misunderstood. You tell yourself you're being mature, emotionally intelligent, transparent. But what you're really doing is trying to regain control by giving more information. This is one of the most common power leaks in modern relationships. Men are taught that emotional openness equals depth, that vulnerability creates intimacy, that clarity prevents conflict. But timing matters more than honesty. And when vulnerability is offered before trust, it does not create closeness. It creates imbalance. In dating, this looks like long messages explaining your feelings early on, clarifying your intentions before consistency exists, revealing insecurities in hopes that transparency will create safety. Instead, it collapses tension. Attraction depends on pacing. When everything is revealed too soon, nothing is discovered. In conflict, it looks like defending yourself immediately, explaining why you didn't mean harm, justifying reactions instead of observing patterns. Over time, this trains others to expect access to your internal world without earning it. In professional life, it looks like narrating your thought process, over-communicating decisions, filling silence with reasoning before it's requested. You think you're being clear, others experience it as uncertainty. The Stoics were deeply suspicious of this impulse. They believed that character should be revealed through action, not explanation. A man who explains himself constantly teaches others that his position is unstable. A man who allows time to confirm his intentions teaches others to observe instead of interrogate. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is confidence under control. This does not mean withholding truth. It means withholding prematurely. When you resist the urge to explain, something powerful happens. You allow space for others to project, interpret, and adjust. You stop managing perceptions and start allowing reality to speak for itself. This is frightening at first, because silence removes immediate reassurance, but it also removes the need to perform. And here is the shift that changes everything. A man who does not rush to be understood signals that he trusts his consistency to speak louder than his words. That trust is felt immediately. In the next chapter, this restraint deepens, because once you stop over-explaining, you are forced to confront something even more difficult, your own emotional reactions. And that is where true power is either mastered or permanently surrendered. Chapter 4. Self-command, not control. Power in relationships has never been about dominance. It has never been about control, leverage, or asserting authority over another person. Those are crude imitations of power, usually adopted by men who feel it slipping away. Real power begins and ends with self-command. A man who governs himself does not need to govern others. His stability does the work for him. Most men misunderstand this because modern culture teaches them the wrong lesson. They are told that confidence means boldness, that leadership means decisiveness, that attraction means taking charge. So when uncertainty appears, they act quickly. They fill silence. They explain themselves. They push for clarity. They mistake motion for strength. But the Stoics understood something far more subtle. The man who cannot pause cannot lead. The man who cannot restrain himself will always be reacting to someone else. Self-command begins in the moment an emotional impulse appears. That impulse might be anxiety when a message goes unanswered. It might be irritation when plans change. It might be insecurity when attention feels inconsistent. Most men feel the impulse and obey it instantly. They respond faster. They seek reassurance. They try to correct the feeling externally, and in doing so, they surrender authority over their own inner state. Emotional dependency forms exactly here, not in dramatic neediness, but in polite reliance, in allowing your mood to rise and fall based on someone else's availability, in needing feedback to feel steady, in checking your phone not out of curiosity, but out of emotional hunger. This dependency rarely looks desperate. It looks reasonable. It looks caring. It looks invested. But beneath it is instability, and instability is felt immediately by others, even when it is never spoken. Pressure suffocates desire because pressure reveals need, and need collapses polarity. When someone senses that your emotional equilibrium depends on their response, attention, or approval, the dynamic changes. They feel responsibility rather than attraction. They feel weight rather than freedom. Independence, on the other hand, preserves space. And space is what allows desire to breathe. A man with self-command does not rush to regulate his emotions through another person. He does not seek reassurance as a reflex. He does not require constant feedback to remain grounded. This does not make him cold or detached. It makes him reliable. Because reliability begins internally. If you cannot be steady with yourself, you cannot be steady with anyone else. The Stoics trained this deliberately. They practiced pausing before response. They practiced enduring discomfort without immediate relief. They practiced observing emotion rather than obeying it. Not because emotion is weakness, but because emotion without discipline becomes governance by impulse. And whoever governs your impulses governs you. In relationships, this discipline changes everything. When you no longer react immediately, others adjust. When you no longer chase reassurance, uncertainty loses its power over you. When you no longer explain yourself to stabilize your emotions, silence becomes neutral instead of threatening. You stop trying to control outcomes because you are no longer trying to escape discomfort. This is why self-command feels unsettling at first. It removes familiar coping mechanisms. It asks you to sit with unease without dissolving it through action. It demands patience that is not performative. But that discomfort is the training ground. Each time you feel the urge to react and choose restraint instead, you reclaim authority over yourself. And authority, once reclaimed internally, radiates outward. A man who governs himself moves differently. His responses are measured. His presence is grounded. His attention is deliberate. He does not escalate tension, but he does not soothe it prematurely either. He allows truth to surface through time and behavior rather than forcing resolution through effort. This is the core distinction most men never make. Control seeks to manage others. Self-command removes the need to. When connection is a choice rather than a necessity, it carries weight. When your presence is offered rather than demanded, it becomes valuable. When your emotions are regulated internally rather than outsourced, you become unshakable. And this is where real power begins to form, not loudly, not aggressively, but quietly, in the moments where you feel the impulse to react and don't. In the next chapter, this restraint reaches its highest test, because there comes a moment when self-command is no longer about holding steady, but about letting go, about walking away. And that decision reveals whether everything you've practiced so far was real or theoretical. Chapter 5. Walking away is the ultimate signal. There is a moment every man reaches where words stop working. He has explained himself. He has adjusted. He has been patient, understanding, available, and still something feels off. Respect is inconsistent. Effort is uneven. Alignment feels conditional. And yet, he stays. Not because the situation is good, but because leaving feels heavier than enduring. This is where power is truly tested. In today's world, walking away is framed as failure. You are told that staying proves loyalty, that enduring proves strength, that leaving means you didn't try hard enough. But the Stoics understood something most men are never taught. Endurance is only virtuous when it serves character. When endurance requires self-abandonment, it becomes weakness disguised as patience. Modern relationships make this trap easy to fall into. In dating, ambiguity is tolerated because attention feels better than absence. Mixed signals are rationalized because occasional affection creates hope. Men stay because they fear starting over, fear being alone, fear losing potential. But potential that demands you shrink is not potential worth protecting. At work, this boundary is quieter but just as corrosive. You remain in roles where your contribution is assumed but not respected. You accept workloads without recognition. You tolerate environments that reward compliance over integrity. You tell yourself this is strategy. Often, it is fear wearing the mask of pragmatism. Even friendships test this boundary. Some relationships persist only because of history. Shared time replaces shared values. Familiarity replaces mutual respect. And instead of acknowledging the shift, men tolerate erosion because ending something feels more uncomfortable than carrying it. The Stoics rejected this entirely. They believed a man must never allow comfort to outweigh character. When you stay where you are diminished, you train yourself to accept less. You normalize misalignment. Over time, your sense of self erodes quietly. Walking away does not require confrontation. It does not require explanation. It requires clarity. Clarity to see when effort is no longer reciprocated. When respect becomes inconsistent. When alignment dissolves. And instead of arguing, negotiating, or chasing closure, you disengage. Quietly, cleanly, without resentment. This is not cruelty. It is self-command. And here is the paradox most men miss. The man who can walk away is not desperate. He is free. And freedom changes posture, voice, presence. People sense when you are not clinging, when you are not negotiating your dignity for acceptance. Often, that is when respect finally appears. But even this boundary can collapse if one force remains unchecked. because there is something stronger than fear of loss, and that is desire. Which brings us to the next chapter. Chapter 6. Desire is the hidden master. Most men believe their struggles come from the outside, from rejection, from disrespect, from chaos, from other people. The Stoics believed otherwise. They believed most suffering begins with unexamined desire, not the desire to survive, but the desire to be approved of, to be chosen, to be reassured, to avoid discomfort, to avoid uncertainty. Desire itself is not the enemy, but when it goes unquestioned, it quietly takes control. And whatever controls what you want, controls you. This is where boundaries collapse. Men know their standards. They understand what they should tolerate and what they shouldn't. And yet, under pressure, they abandon all of it. Not because they forgot, but because desire spoke louder than reason. In modern dating, this shows up constantly, chasing clarity instead of accepting silence, lowering standards to avoid loneliness, staying in emotional ambiguity because attention feels better than absence. Men tell themselves they are being patient, understanding, flexible, but beneath that language is fear. Fear of being alone, fear of starting over, fear of not being chosen. Desire whispers that you should wait a little longer, explain one more time, tolerate what makes you uneasy, and slowly, dignity erodes. At work, desire takes a different form. It becomes the desire to be liked, to be agreeable, to be seen as reliable, to avoid conflict. So men accept extra work without respect. They stay silent when credit is taken. They overperform while being under-acknowledged. They call it ambition. Often it is approval-seeking in disguise. The Stoics were deeply suspicious of this. They understood that a man who needs validation cannot act freely. Every decision is filtered through how it will be received. That is not strength. That is dependency. Desire also hides in comfort. The desire to avoid awkwardness. The desire to avoid endings. The desire to keep things familiar even when they no longer align. Men stay in conversations they have outgrown, in relationships that quietly drain them, in routines that numb rather than sharpen. They tell themselves it's not that bad, that it could be worse, that they'll deal with it later. Later rarely comes. The Stoics believed the greatest form of slavery was not chains, but appetite. The appetite for pleasure, ease, reassurance, and escape. This is why Stoicism places such emphasis on restraint. Not because life should be joyless, but because a man who cannot say no to his impulses will eventually say yes to his own erosion. Controlling desire does not mean eliminating it. It means interrogating it. Every desire must be questioned honestly, whether it aligns with your values or merely soothes insecurity, whether it strengthens you or quietly weakens you. Desire is clever. It justifies itself using moral language. It tells you that you are being compassionate, understanding, human. The Stoics warned against this self-deception. If a desire causes you to tolerate disrespect, abandon standards, or act against long-term character, it is not virtuous, no matter how gently it presents itself. This is why Stoics practiced voluntary restraint. They trained themselves to go without, to delay gratification, to endure discomfort by choice, not to punish themselves, but to prove they were not controlled by their urges. In modern life, this means resisting the impulse to respond immediately when you crave reassurance, resisting the urge to chase attention when you feel ignored, resisting the habit of numbing discomfort with distraction. At first, this feels unsettling. Desire always wants immediate relief. But relief is not freedom. Freedom is knowing you can endure the urge without obeying it. The man who controls his desires moves differently. He does not rush. He does not chase. He does not negotiate his values for comfort. He is calm, not because he has everything, but because he needs very little. Marcus Aurelius wrote that true wealth is not having many possessions, but having few desires. That wisdom applies far beyond material things. Few emotional dependencies, few approval needs, few cravings for certainty. This is what makes every other boundary sustainable. Because without control over desire, emotional mastery collapses under insecurity, boundaries collapse under loneliness, and the willingness to walk away collapses under fear. And in the next chapter, everything tightens even further, because even desire cannot rule a man who governs the voice inside his own mind. Chapter 7. Values, Boundaries, and the Cost of Staying. Every man believes he has values. Far fewer have tested them. Values only become real when they cost you something, when they demand discomfort, when honoring them means losing access, approval, or familiarity. Until then, they are just preferences, easily negotiated the moment pressure appears. This is where most men unknowingly lose themselves. They stay in situations that no longer align, not because they agree with them, but because leaving feels disruptive. They tolerate subtle disrespect because calling it out would create tension. They remain silent because silence feels safer than confrontation. Over time, this silence becomes habit, and habit becomes identity. The danger is not the situation itself. The danger is what staying teaches you about yourself. Every time you remain where your values are compromised, your mind takes note. It learns that your principles bend under pressure, that comfort outweighs coherence, that alignment is optional when it becomes inconvenient. And once your own mind stops trusting your standards, enforcing boundaries becomes almost impossible. This is why boundaries collapse quietly. They are not broken in dramatic moments. They are dissolved through small concessions, through just this once, through it's not worth it, through I'll deal with it later. Later rarely comes. In modern relationships, this shows up everywhere. In dating, it looks like tolerating inconsistency because the alternative is loneliness. You accept mixed signals. You rationalize emotional unavailability. You downplay moments that don't sit right because you're afraid of losing connection. But connection that requires you to abandon your values is not connection. It is dependency disguised as hope. In friendships, it looks like history replacing respect. You remain loyal to people you've outgrown. You excuse behavior you would never accept from someone new. You tell yourself time invested justifies continued tolerance, but shared history is not shared values. And loyalty without reciprocity becomes self-neglect. In professional life, it looks like staying where integrity is quietly compromised. You accept diminished recognition. You remain silent when credit is taken. You endure environments that reward compliance over character. You tell yourself this is strategic, but strategy that erodes self-respect eventually erodes confidence. And confidence, once shaken, does not recover easily. The Stoics were unyielding on this point. They believed that a man must never trade character for comfort, not because comfort is evil, but because comfort has a way of demanding more than it gives. Walking away, then, is not an act of aggression. It is an act of alignment. Walking away does not require confrontation. It does not require speeches or emotional closure. It requires clarity. The clarity to recognize when effort is no longer reciprocated, when respect becomes conditional, when alignment has dissolved, even if affection remains. This is the discipline most men avoid, because walking away forces honesty. not just about the situation, but about yourself. It forces you to admit that staying is no longer virtuous, that endurance has crossed into self-betrayal. The Stoics believed that a man who knows he can leave is never desperate, and the man who is not desperate cannot be controlled. Once you internalize this, boundaries stop feeling aggressive. They feel natural. You no longer argue for respect. You remove yourself from environments where it is absent, and this changes everything, because when your values are non-negotiable, your presence carries weight. People sense that you are not clinging, that you are not bargaining, that you will not abandon yourself to preserve comfort. That clarity is felt long before it is explained. And when values are anchored and boundaries hold, something else begins to emerge, something subtle but powerful. Leadership. Chapter 8. Leadership without desperation. Most men misunderstand leadership in relationships. They think it means asserting control, making decisions, being dominant, setting rules. But real leadership does not announce itself. It stabilizes the environment quietly. It sets tone rather than issuing commands. Leadership begins with self-leadership. A man who leads himself well does not rush outcomes. He does not force clarity. He does not chase reassurance. He understands that urgency is often fear in disguise, and fear, once detected, undermines authority instantly. This is why desperation is so corrosive. Desperation does not need words. It is felt. It shows up in rushed replies, in overinvestment, in explaining instead of observing, in pushing for certainty before consistency exists. And once desperation enters the dynamic, the balance shifts. The man becomes reactive instead of grounded. The Stoics understood this intuitively. They believed that the man who governs himself governs the situation without trying. Leadership in relationships is not about pursuing. It is about inviting. A man with internal order does not chase entry into someone else's world. He builds his own world, routines, values, direction, and allows others to step into it voluntarily. This invitation carries weight because it is not fueled by need. It is fueled by alignment. In practice, this looks subtle. He listens fully instead of waiting to speak. He pauses instead of reacting. He chooses words deliberately rather than emotionally. He allows silence to exist without rushing to fill it. This creates safety without submission, confidence without dominance. People adjust around this presence, not because they are forced to, but because steadiness naturally reorganizes dynamics. In dating, this means attraction remains voluntary. There is no pressure, no performance, no auditioning, just observation and choice. This removes anxiety from the interaction and replaces it with clarity. In friendships, it means you no longer manage group dynamics emotionally. You show up fully or you don't. You engage where alignment exists and disengage where it doesn't, without resentment. In professional environments, it means you do not chase validation. You contribute with intention. You speak when it matters. You withdraw when integrity is compromised. Over time, this earns trust, not because you are agreeable, but because you are consistent. Leadership without desperation is rare in modern life. That rarity makes it powerful, because when a man is not scrambling internally, others feel it immediately. They slow down. They become more deliberate. They test less. They respect more, not because he demanded it, because he embodied it. An embodiment requires one final ingredient, the one most men underestimate: discipline. Conclusion. The quiet return of power. Power does not return in a dramatic moment. There is no confrontation, no final speech. no recognition from the people who once dismissed you. Power returns quietly. It returns the first time you feel discomfort and do not override it. The first time you allow silence to stand without filling it. The first time you choose clarity over comfort and do not explain yourself afterward. Most men wait for permission to reclaim their self-respect. They wait for circumstances to improve, for others to change, for validation to arrive. But the Stoics understood something far more demanding. No one gives power back to a man who surrendered it. He takes it back by refusing to continue the behavior that gave it away. This is why the work has always been internal. It was never about becoming colder, harder, or more dominant. It was about becoming anchored, about restoring alignment between what you tolerate externally and what you respect internally, about ending the quiet negotiations that slowly hollowed you out. When you stop abandoning yourself in small moments, the world begins to respond differently, not immediately, not always kindly, but clearly. Some people adjust. Some people drift away. Some reveal they were only comfortable with you when you were smaller. None of this is loss. It is filtration. You do not need to convince anyone of your worth when your actions already reflect it. You do not need to demand respect when your presence no longer begs for acceptance. You do not need to chase alignment when you are willing to walk away from misalignment without resentment. This is Stoic power, not control over others, but sovereignty over yourself. It shows in how you speak less but mean more, in how you move without urgency, in how your standards no longer fluctuate based on fear of loss. You become harder to manipulate not because you resist harder, but because you no longer react the same way. And over time, something stabilizes. Relationships feel simpler. Decisions feel cleaner. Your mind feels quieter, not because life becomes easier, but because you stop fighting yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote that if something is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That standard is not meant to impress anyone. It is meant to steady you. Live it without explanation, without performance, without resentment. If this reflection resonated, remain with the Stoic Code. This channel exists for men who value depth over noise, discipline over impulse, and clarity over comfort. Subscribe if you intend to practice this, not just listen to it. Share this with someone who needs steadiness rather than motivation. And leave a comment with the moment in your life when you realized something had shifted. Your reflection may help another man recognize his own. The work does not end here. It continues quietly, in thought before action, in restraint before reaction, and in principle before comfort. Stand firm.